Hello, friends, and welcome back to r/MaliciousCompliance. In our first story, we'll touch on the problem of trespassing on personal property. Our OP spent a lot of nerves and patience waging war with his neighbors, but in the end, he had to act tough, which brought him victory over the evil neighbors. But before we begin, don't forget to subscribe to our channel if you're new here, and turn on notifications so you don't miss a new video every single day. Here we go. Sounds like you're in trouble, lady. Okay, so the cast is me, EM, EK, and BF. I own the house we live in. My boyfriend moved in about a year and a half ago. Things have been great between us, but a new neighbor moved in around the same time as he did. Enter EM. This woman has 4 kids, all boys, all loud, all cruel, and all around a pain in my behind. Now I can hear you say, how do you know she's an EM? Well, her kids have broken my flower pot, scared my cat, ran into my car, and when I try to tell her anything, she pulls the "they're just kids" card. I told her about a week ago that the next time her kids are on my property, I was going to call the cops. See, her kids are not even kids. The oldest is about 16 or 17, and the youngest is maybe 11 or 12. Old enough that very real consequences can affect them. Please don't read too much into that. I just dislike people messing with my stuff. So guess what they did yesterday? My boyfriend had just come home from work. I work from home, and the oldest boy ran by with a water balloon and threw it at him in the middle of winter. My boyfriend helped me install a couple of cameras about 8 months ago because I wanted proof of those little bee-turds doing anything in my yard. My boyfriend was not expecting the water balloon and almost slipped on the snow while getting out of his car. So guess who I called? If you guessed Johnny Law, then you're correct. EM tried so hard to get me to drop the charges on her oldest son. Battery or something? I wasn't paying attention because he didn't know any better. Why are you being so cruel to a single mother? Fun fact about that lie, she's not a single mother. I've seen her husband or whoever plenty of times. My boyfriend says I could drop the charges, and I will, in about a month or two, so she makes her kids stay off my property. And our second story. Don't shush me. The office I work in is usually fairly busy and loud. Multiple people are always on the phone. It's never quiet. Me and the intern are sitting on one end of the room. A manager, not my manager's, she's just a manager, was sitting loudly speaking on her phone to her work friend. I got up for lunch and turned to the intern, about to ask her if she wanted anything while I was out, but as the first word came out of my mouth, I hear, "Shh." I turned to see my manager's angrily looking at me, a finger raised to her lips. She wouldn't have done that to anyone except me because I'm the youngest. She has no authority over me, and I report directly to the CEO. We also have a quiet room if you have to do an important call. I leave without saying another word. And here's the pettiness. There's a door that if you don't hold on to the door will slam shut super loudly. Usually I gently close it because I hate it when others slam it. But today, I opened it wide and enjoyed listening to it spring shut. I turned the good kettle on, which you can clearly hear upstairs. Then I walk outside, get into my car. I needed to go somewhere on my break, and I rev my car up the hill. All things that are annoying, but can be explained away fairly easily. I came back smiling as if nothing happened and noticed that the manager was now in the quiet room. I know I'm petty. I should go meditate. But that pettiness was my meditation. This was a perfectly reasonable response. I effing hate being angrily shushed. And our last story. Take a pay cut and lose benefits or be fired. Okay. I work as a logistical consultant and have done so for the past 7 years. Most of my work is short-term contracts to update/optimize logistical systems for manufacturers and delivery businesses. I do have a couple of long-term contracts with repeat clients, and this story is about one such client. I got a job offer 6 years ago with a friend who inherited his family's machine shop. His father is a brilliant man, but not business savvy in the slightest, and the entire business was teetering on bankruptcy. My main job there was optimizing the production method for both existing contracts and future contracts. This was my first long-term contract, but I'd been doing similar work for a few years and had gotten a couple of patents for producing some intricate parts before getting this job. In the contract negotiation, I made sure that any patents developed in the course of my work would be retained completely by me. The contract term was 5 years before reevaluating. It took a lot of time and work, but the company became rather successful, especially considering the condition my friend inherited it. The 2020 happened, and after about a year of trying to stay afloat, my friend sold to some entrepreneur who wanted to get into the industry. In the months prior to the sale, the new boss was trying to familiarize himself with the business. Being in charge of logistics, I'd given him a tour of the place and informed him of the patented methods used. This was happening right around the time my contract reevaluation was supposed to happen, and I asked whether I'd be negotiating with him or the new boss. He realized I didn't want to be stuck in a contract I would negotiate with him if he wasn't going to be my boss, and he assured me that he'd make sure my new contract would be negotiated with the new boss. The new boss started restructuring and laying off most salaried employees and cutting benefits like vacation and sick time as soon as the acquisition went through. I was not a fan of the new boss since he, in addition to this, was a jerk with zero experience and refused to acknowledge that fact. He didn't understand what exactly my job was and thought it was unnecessary. I could tell he was just waiting for my contract negotiation. Fast forward about a month into the new regime and enter the crap show that was my negotiation. He was of the opinion that I was overpaid and inefficient. He all but said that I was unnecessary. My only options were to either essentially become a part-time contractor with an effective 70% cut to what I was making and none of my benefits, or be fired. When he gave me the ultimatum, I was beyond shocked. I immediately contacted my lawyer and told him my contract was absolutely insulting. Needless to say, I chose option 2. Over the course of my time there, I had filed 2 patents that were extensively used by the company. With shorter contracts, I typically negotiate for better royalty rate than benefits or salary, but since this business was both with my friend and supposed to be long-term, I opted for negotiating benefits. About a week after the negotiations were completed, I told the new boss we needed to discuss royalties before my term was officially over. He was not amused and was dismissive. After enough pressing from me, we had a meeting with lawyers present. What's important to know is that one patent is extensively used in the production of an electrical device for the company's biggest client. The royalties deal, written up by my lawyer, was the standard one I use for most companies, which is more expensive than my previous contract. New boss was shocked and fuming, saying how this was completely ridiculous and bordering on extortion considering how much more expensive it would be and how not being able to use the patent would mean he'd lose clients while shifting production methods. I told him that he had in total 6 months of time to figure out what it was that I did and to familiarize himself with the company and the fact that I had told him when I gave him the tour that I was the patent holder. He also could have asked for a quote in my usual rates. The first meeting ended very abruptly after this, and 3 days later he came with an insulting counteroffer where I'd be employed again, but with far less benefits than I originally had. I told him I don't want to work for him and that he either pays my rate or change production methods. This would entail replacing a lot of tooling and equipment and retraining workers. He threatened to sue and got rather belligerent, so I told him I'd see him in court if that was the case. Otherwise, he knows my offer and has my contract info. He quickly realized that even in the unlikely event of the court deciding in his favor, that he'd still lose a lot of money in legal fees. After the meeting, I told my lawyer to draft a cease and desist and have it ready for when the contract expires. New boss started looking for my replacement. He'd not stopped production or even told the clients about it during this time period. The day after my term ended, I sent the cease and desist letter, and production stopped. He lost most clients, most employees just jumped ship, and last week declared bankruptcy. Hope he learned his lesson. Never screw over the logistics guy. Edit. The entrepreneur, who for simplicity will be called Bob, seemed both stupid and ill-informed of what canning me would do. I'd not really thought about this as I checked out of the issue after my contract negotiation with Bob. I wasn't even required to come in for the last 2 weeks, so I didn't. I asked my friend and some coworkers who stayed on after I left about what the plan was. My friend told me that he informed him both in writing and while in discussions of the patent issue. Bob was not especially concerned and told him that he's had to deal with proprietary complications before. The warehouse manager and head bookkeeper informed me over lunch yesterday that Bob had hired a patent lawyer to find out what exactly would need to be changed to the process to no longer be infringing. This sort of thing is common in the pharmaceutical and chemical manufacturing industry to renew patents for corporate interest. The warehouse manager was told increase production and create a surplus before my contract expired so that the line could be modified and the orders for the clients could be filled while he had talks with the clients. However, the only people still employed that had the necessary information to help the technician change all the machines was the warehouse manager and the floor manager. Between the lack of hands, unexpected complications in implementing the modifications, and having only 2/3 of the floor machines actually working, the surplus had run out and the orders could no longer be filled. The client, who apparently, the bookkeeper said the only one who knows the specifics is the client and Bob, agreed verbally but not in writing to the change in the product and the possibility of not receiving full orders as the production line was modified. The mounting economic pressures led to the bankruptcy, so Bob was not a suicidal dumbbutt, he just overestimated his abilities. My lawyer had contacted a friend of his who specializes in bankruptcy law, and I've talked with 2 of the previous clients about the situation. The large client has expressed interest in securing a source of the parts, but the smaller one had already been on the fence about discontinuing the product that required our parts, so I went to the bankruptcy auction, purchased the assets at auction, and partnered with previous clients. Long story short, I own a machine shop with a few clients I just happen to have the production line patents for already laid out, and now we're running a successful business together. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one.